The light through the shoji screen in the early morning is not white. People who have not sat in a traditional Japanese room at dawn assume it will be white because the paper is white and the light source is the sun. But the actual quality of the light that comes through washi paper at 5:30 in the morning in late October is closer to the color of raw honey, warm and slightly amber, and thick. In the way that only morning light is thick, the way that suggests the day has not yet decided to be fully itself, and is still in the process of becoming, still gathering its intention from wherever intention gathers before it arrives in the world as action. You are sitting in that light. Your hands are in your lap. The futon has been folded and set against the wall. The room smells of tatami and the faint cedar of the wooden pillar, and underneath both of those smells, barely present but growing, the smell of dashi beginning, the smell of the kombu that went into cold water last night and has been working in the silence of the kitchen while you slept, pulling its minerals and its glutamates and its oceanic depth out of the dried seaweed and into the water with the patience of a process that requires no supervision, no attention, no presence, only time. This is restoration before the first meal has been eaten. This is the body returning to itself after the night, and the kitchen already meeting it halfway. The 10 meals that follow are not medicines in the clinical sense. They are not prescriptions. They are the accumulated understanding of a food culture that has been watching the relationship between what people eat and how people feel. For longer than the germ theory of disease has existed, longer than the vitamin has been named, longer than the microbiome has been mapped. They are the meals that the Japanese kitchen reached for when the body had been depleted by illness, or overwork, or grief, or the particular exhaustion that comes from a long winter and a cold house, and the kind of sustained effort that leaves no visible mark but takes something from the deep reserves that the body does not easily replenish. They are also, simply, 10 of the most quietly beautiful meals that any tradition has produced, and they are beautiful in the specific way that the light through the shoji screen is beautiful. It's not through complexity or drama, or the accumulation of impressive elements, but through the precision with which they meet exactly what is needed, in exactly the form that is needed, at exactly the right temperature, and in exactly the right quantity. The first is okayu, and it appears in this record not as a repetition of what has been said before about rice porridge, but as a deepening, because okayu in the context of restoration is a different preparation from okayu in the context of breakfast, or economy, or survival. The restorative okayu is made with intention. It begins with the ichiban dashi, the first dashi, the one made from the overnight kombu and the 3-minute steep of katsuobushi, the dashi that carries the full glutamate and inosinate synergy that no packet or shortcut can replicate, as the synergy that signals depth and nourishment to the body before the food has even been swallowed, the signal traveling through the nose and the mouth to the brain and the gut simultaneously, preparing the entire digestive system for the arrival of something real. Into this dashi goes the rice, 1 part rice to 8 parts dashi, rather than the survival ratio of 1 to 7. The extra dashi producing a porridge that is thinner and more liquid than the standard preparation, gentler on a digestive system that may have been compromised by illness or stress, easier to absorb and process than a denser preparation. The thin consistency being not a deprivation, but a calibration. The cook adjusting the ratio not by measuring, but by understanding what the body receiving the meal is capable of receiving. The okayu simmers for 50 minutes, odd covered, at the absolute lowest heat the burner can produce, stirred 3 times across that hour with a wooden paddle that is wide enough to reach the entire base of the pot, preventing the rice from settling and scorching. At 50 minutes, the rice has bloomed completely, each grain having dissolved at its edges into the surrounding dashi, and thickened it, the whole pot having become a single, unified, trembling thing. A pinch of salt. Nothing else. Served in the bowl that has been warmed first with hot water poured in and poured out, the warming step that ensures the porridge stays at the temperature of restoration, which is the temperature of the inside of a cupped hand, the temperature that the body accepts as familiar and safe. The restorative additions come on the side. A single umeboshi placed in the center of the bowl, so its citric acid and its malic acid and its bacteriostatic compounds the oldest and most reliable digestive support that the Japanese kitchen offers. A scatter of white sesame seeds, ground slightly between the fingers before scattering so that the oil has been partially released and is immediately available rather than passing through the digestive system intact. A few strands of the trefoil herb, mitsuba, placed across the top for their volatile essential oils, which stimulate the production of digestive enzymes, and for their color, which is the green of something living in a bowl of something pale, and which tells the eye, which tells the brain, which tells the body, that what is being offered here is real and good. The second meal is the one that the Japanese medical tradition, Zaishan's the Kampo tradition that has been incorporating food as medicine for over 1,500 years, reaches for when the liver is exhausted and the mind is foggy, and the particular kind of tiredness that is not sleepiness but depletion has settled into the body like silt settles into still water. Shijimi no miso shiru, the miso soup made from the small freshwater clams called shijimi, which are collected from river estuaries and lake shallows, and which contain within their tiny bodies a concentration of ornithine that is, per gram, among the highest of any food source available to the Japanese table. Ornithine is an amino acid that participates directly in the urea cycle, the hepatic process by which the liver converts the ammonia produced by protein metabolism into urea for excretion. And the efficiency of this cycle determines the degree to which metabolic waste products accumulate in the blood and contribute to the fatigue and cognitive fog that the Japanese tradition describes as liver depletion, and that the biochemistry of the hepatic metabolism describes in different but compatible terms. The shijimi clam has been the liver food of the Japanese kitchen for so long that its association with liver support is embedded in common speech, in the way that people say, without needing to explain, that shijimi soup is what you eat when you have been working too hard, or drinking too much, or carrying too much for too long. The shijimi are soaked in lightly salted water for 2 hours before cooking, a process called sand purging that removes the grit from the inside of the shells, and that also, incidentally, causes the clams to expel and refilter the water they contain, a form of self-cleaning that produces a cleaner, clearer broth when the clams are cooked. They go into cold water in the pot, not hot water, because the cold start pulls more flavor from the shells as the water heats, and they are brought to just below a boil, the moment of the first sign of boiling being the moment they are removed from the heat, the shells having opened in the hot water and released their flavor and their ornithine into the surrounding liquid. The miso is dissolved in at the end, the darkest red miso available, the long-fermented hacho miso if it can be found, its bitterness and depth the complement of the delicate sweetness of the clam broth, the combination producing a soup that tastes and is medicinal in the most complete sense of the word. Is medicinal in the sense that it directly addresses a specific physiological need through specific chemical means delivered in a form that the body has evolved to recognize and receive with maximum efficiency. 3 shijimi clams in a bowl of soup. The broth drunk from the bowl with both hands. The shells set at the side of the bowl when the flesh has been extracted with the tip of a chopstick. Eaten in the morning, before anything else, when the liver is most receptive and the stomach is empty, and the ornithine can be absorbed without competition. The third meal is the one that restores what heat and exercise and the summer months or the winter dry air take from the body continuously and invisibly until the taking has accumulated to the point of being felt. Yamaimo no Tororo Gohan, grated mountain yam over rice. The mountain yam that produces when grated a substance unlike anything else in the vegetable kingdom. A thick, viscous, white mucilaginous material that the Japanese kitchen calls tororo, and that contains within its strange, almost unsettling texture, a collection of compounds that the digestive system receives as profound assistance. The mucilaginous compounds of the grated yamaimo coat the stomach lining and the intestinal wall with a thin, protective film that reduces the friction and the irritation of digestion, that creates the conditions under which the intestinal epithelium can repair its barrier function, that protects the underlying tissue from the enzymatic activity of the digestive process itself. The diastase enzymes of the raw yamaimo assist in the digestion of the rice starch it is eaten over, reducing the digestive burden on the pancreas. The saponins and the glycoproteins of the mountain yam have demonstrated adaptogenic properties in the research literature, meaning they support the body's ability to regulate its stress response in ways that neither stimulate nor suppress, but normalize, helping the physiological systems that chronic overwork has pushed out of their optimal range to return to it. The yamaimo is grated on the ceramic oroshi gane, the ridged ceramic grater, rather than the metal grater, because the ceramic produces a finer, more uniform texture and does not impart the metallic oxidation to the grated yam that metal produces. And the grated yam is used immediately, within 5 minutes of grating, because the enzymes it contains begin to degrade at the moment of cellular damage that grating produces. And the most enzymatically active tororo is the tororo that has not had time to lose its activity. Poured over hot rice in a bowl, the tororo spreads and settles and is mixed through the rice with chopsticks before eating, the mixing distributing the yam throughout the rice so that every bite of rice is coated with the protective, enzymatic, nourishing substance of the grated yam. A little dashi, a pinch of wasabi, a pour of soy around the edge of the bowl, not over the top, so that the soy is encountered rather than uniformly present, arriving in concentration at the edge of each spoonful and then dissipating into the mildness of the rice and the yam at the center. The fourth meal is the one that the coastal villages of Japan have been making for centuries as the meal of recovery from physical labor, from fishing in cold water and hauling nets and the particular exhaustion of working against the sea's indifference, and that the nutritional understanding of the 21st century confirms as one of the most complete recovery meals that any tradition has produced. Salmon and root vegetable miso soup. Sake no kasujiru, the miso soup made with sake leaves, the white, paste-like fermented sediment of sake production, with pieces of salted salmon and burdock and daikon and carrot and konjac, a soup that is more accurately a stew that has chosen, out of modesty, to call itself a soup. The sake leaves bring to the soup a concentration of B vitamins, specifically thiamine and riboflavin and niacin, the vitamins that the body's energy metabolism requires and that physical exhaustion depletes, the vitamins whose absence produces the fatigue and the muscle weakness and the inability to recover from effort that the fishing community recognized not as vitamin deficiency, but as needing this soup. The salmon brings its omega-3 fatty acids and its astaxanthin, the carotenoid that gives the flesh its color, and that is among the most potent natural anti-inflammatory compounds available to the human diet, addressing the inflammatory state that hard physical work produces in the muscles and the connective tissue and the joints. The burdock root in the soup provides the inulin that feeds the bifidobacterium colonies that the stress of physical overexertion suppresses, restoring the gut microbiome to the composition that supports the immune function, and the mood regulation that recovery from hard work requires beyond the purely physical. The combination is not calculated. It is the accumulation of the fishing village's collective experience of what made people feel better after the kind of work that the sea demanded, transmitted through the practical medium of the recipe, arriving at the body as restoration without anyone along the chain of transmission needing to understand why. The fifth meal is the quiet one, the meal of the third day of illness, the day when the fever has broken and the appetite is returning, but the body is still fragile and the digestive system is still tentative, and the first real food needs to be something that meets the body where it is rather than where it was before the illness began. Tamago no okayu, egg porridge, the restorative okayu of the first meal with a single egg added. Set the egg beaten separately and stirred into the simmering porridge in the last 2 minutes of cooking. The heat of the porridge cooking the egg to soft, pale, barely there ribbons distributed through the white of the porridge, the protein arriving in the most pre-digested, most immediately absorbable form that a cooked egg can take. The traditional accompaniments to the egg porridge of recovery are specific and have been specific for a very long time. The umeboshi for its organic acids and its antibacterial compounds. The small dish of natto, if the recovering body can accept it, for its Bacillus subtilis natto and its nattokinase and its vitamin K2 that illness and the medications that sometimes accompany illness have depleted. The pickled ginger, not the sweet pickled ginger of the sushi restaurant, but the sharp, thin sliced ginger pickled in rice vinegar for the ginger roll that stimulates the sluggish appetite back toward its normal function. These are not garnishes. They are not decoration. They are the components of a system, each addressing a different aspect of what illness takes from the body, each delivered in a form and quantity calibrated by centuries of practice to be exactly what the recovering body can receive and use. Not more, never more. Because the recovering body is a system that needs assistance rather than overwhelming, that needs the door opened rather than forced. The sixth meal is the one for the kind of exhaustion that is not physical and not quite illness, but something in between. The exhaustion that the Japanese word tsukare describes, the word that means tired in the sense of having been used up, of having given more than has been replenished, of being in the deficit that the modern world produces in the people who live in it most attentively. Buddha no kakuni, the slow-braised pork belly, not the rich, indulgent preparation of the special occasion, but the specific restorative version of it, smaller in portion, lighter in seasoning. The pork belly simmered first in plain water for an hour to remove excess fat, then transferred to a fresh pot with dashi and sake and a small amount of soy and mirin and a piece of ginger, and simmered again for another hour. The double cooking producing a piece of pork that is soft throughout and flavored deeply but not heavily, that delivers the amino acids and the collagen peptides and the zinc and the B12 that the depleted body is deficient in without delivering the caloric density that the depleted digestive system cannot efficiently process. Eaten over a bowl of rice with a spoonful of the braising liquid poured over it, a piece of blanched komatsuna greens on the side for the iron and the folate, and the vitamin C that drives iron absorption, the whole meal constituting a nutritional repair of the kind that the body receives not as treatment, but as care. The distinction being important because the body's response to care is different from its response to treatment. More open, more receptive, more capable of using what is offered. The seventh meal is the one made from the sea's most concentrated offerings, that the ones that the ocean has been producing for 400 million years, and that the Japanese kitchen has been incorporating for as long as there has been a Japanese kitchen, the ones that carry within them the minerals of the deep ocean in forms that the human body can absorb with an efficiency that no supplement has replicated. Hijiki to soybean, no nemono, simmered hijiki sea vegetable with soybeans. The hijiki providing iron in concentrations that few land vegetables match. The soybeans providing the protein and the isoflavones and the prebiotic fiber that the iron in the hijiki requires as company to be fully absorbed and used. The hijiki is soaked for 30 minutes, expanding from its hard, dried state into something tender and dark and smelling of the deep ocean. Then drained and dried briefly in a hot pan before the soybeans and the dashi and the soy and the mirin are added, and the whole preparation simmers slowly until the liquid has been absorbed, and the hijiki and the soybeans have become a single, dark, intensely flavored thing, dense and satisfying in small quantities, eaten in a small dish beside rice and soup. The small dish containing more restorative mineral content than any supplement aisle has yet managed to fit into a single capsule. The eighth meal is the one that restores the body from the inside of the gut, from the microbiome level up, the level at which all restoration ultimately must begin, because the gut is the organ through which all other restoration is mediated, the organ that determines how much of what is eaten becomes available to the tissue and the blood and the cell, the organ that the modern diet has most systematically and most consequentially disrupted. The fermented meal, not a single dish, but a composition. The meal built around the principle that every component should carry living cultures, or the products of living cultures. The meal that the Japanese kitchen has been making for 1,000 years under the description of a regular dinner, and that the Functional Medicine Clinic of 2026 recommends under the description of a gut restoration protocol. Miso soup, properly made, with miso added off the heat. Natto, stirred 100 times. Tsukemono from the nukadoko that has been maintained for at least a week, the lactic acid fermentation having had time to develop the diversity of species that short ferments cannot produce. Brown rice, cooked and cooled and reheated. Its resistant starch, the prebiotic substrate on which the probiotic organisms of the miso and the natto and the pickle will proliferate and establish themselves in the gut ecology. A small dish of shio koji marinated cucumber, the koji enzymes having transformed the surface of the cucumber in the 24 hours of marination into something pre-digested and therefore metabolically available in a way that raw cucumber is not. This meal contains no single heroic ingredient. It contains an ecology. It is the meal that says to the gut microbiome, here is everything you need to restore the diversity and the function that stress and poor eating and the modern food supply have reduced. Here it is in the forms you can use. Here it is at the temperature and in the quantity that allows you to receive it fully. The ninth meal is the one that the Japanese grandmother made for the member of the family who had been away, who had returned from the city or the military or the long hospital stay or the period of work that had taken them far from home cooking, the meal that said, "You are back, and I know what you have been missing, and I have been keeping it for you." A full Japanese meal, Ichiju Sansai, the one soup and 3 sides that constitutes the complete traditional meal structure, made from the best of what the season and the pantry offer, made with the full attention that the homecoming deserved. The soup is a clear sumashi jiru, the dashi-based clear soup with a piece of few wheat gluten and a sprig of mitsuba and a sliver of yuzu peel. The soup that demonstrates the dashi most nakedly, that has nowhere to hide behind miso or heavy seasoning. That is only as good as the dashi it is made from, and that therefore, when made from the overnight kombu dashi and the 3-minute katsuobushi steep, is a thing of transparent, shimmering depth that the first sip places immediately and completely in the body as the taste of being home. The 3 sides are whatever the season offers at its best. A simmered root vegetable in a sweet dashi glaze, a small dish of dressed greens with sesame, a piece of grilled fish seasoned only with salt. The rice is from the new harvest if the season allows. the shinmai that the Japanese autumn produces, and that tastes of the year's agricultural effort, the specific mineral profile of a specific soil in a specific part of the country, a flavor that no other rice and no other season produces. This meal restores not the body only, but the person inside the body, the person who is not separable from the meals that formed them, who carries within the deep memory of the cells the taste of the place they came from, who is restored to themselves most completely by the meal that was made for them by someone who knew what they needed before they knew it themselves. The 10th meal is the one that this record has been moving toward since the first paragraph, since the cold light through the shoji and the smell of the dashi beginning in the kitchen while the house still slept. It is not a specific recipe. It is a practice, a daily practice, and like all daily practices, it produces results not in the moment of the practice, but in the accumulation of moments, in the day after day after day of the same quiet attention to the same quiet meal. Is the attention compounding the way that interest compounds, slowly at first, and then with a momentum that seems to anyone watching from the outside like an extraordinary natural advantage, and that is, to anyone practicing from the inside, simply the result of not stopping. The practice is this: make the dashi. Make it from the kombu that has been soaking since the previous evening, and the katsuobushi that steeps in the hot kombu water for 3 minutes and then is strained away. Use this dashi as the foundation of the morning meal, whatever the morning meal is, the miso soup, or the simmered vegetable, or the porridge, or the clear soup. Eat the morning meal at the same time every morning. Eat it at a table, sitting down, with both hands on the bowl for the soup and both eyes on what is in the bowl for the duration of the eating. I do not eat while looking at a screen or reading or thinking about what comes next. Be, for the 10 or 15 minutes of the meal, entirely in the meal. Make the fermented thing. Keep the nukadoko or the miso or the natto in the kitchen and eat from it daily, not occasionally. Not when you remember daily, because the gut microbiome that is fed intermittently is different from the gut microbiome that is fed consistently, less diverse, less stable, less capable of the functions that make everything else the kitchen produces available to the body. Eat the whole vegetable. Eat the leaf and the stem and the skin and the part that the market has decided is not worth displaying. Eat the whole fish when the fish is small enough to eat whole. Eat the bone broth, not from a packaged product, but from the bones of the fish you ate last night. I simmered in fresh water for 20 minutes this morning, strained and salted and drunk from a cup. Waste nothing, not as a philosophy, as a practice, as the daily decision that each part of the vegetable and each portion of the broth and each grain of rice is worth the attention required to use it, and that the attention required to use it is not a burden, but a form of relation with the food, a form of relation with the body that receives it, a form of relation with the tradition that understood this long before you did and kept it for you, passed it forward through the generations like the family dashi cloth, passed through the strainer each morning, kept clean, kept in use, never discarded. The light through the shoji is changing. The amber is thinning toward the white that will be the day. The dashi is ready. The miso waits to be dissolved, off the heat, at the right temperature, alive. The bowl is warm. Begin.